Welcome to the Health Revolution, the program that shows you how to have a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity. We reveal the science-backed strategies that truly work in a sea of fads. We explore the physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery. These are the keys to an enriched life. Join us for inspiring interviews with champions who've conquered life's health challenges. Are you ready to unlock your potential to live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest. Together, we're about to change the game, starting now. The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Welcome, everybody. You are watching The Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are delighted to have you join us today. And of course, no matter which way you're tuning in to us, whether it's Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple, LinkedIn, any of the social media handles, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button because we want to stay connected to you. At the bottom of your screen, you will also see a tab for show episode notes. Please do pay attention to that. There's going to be relevant and important information based on today's episode. I am excited and eager to have this conversation today. Today, we're talking about the impact that childhood trauma has on us later on in life. And many times we don't realize how we carry that into different arenas in our life to where it can impact us in ways that we don't realize. And so today we get to unpack that. We get to understand why it's important to address it, how we can address it in a very safe and secure way, and then what we can do afterwards so that we can live our optimal life. My guest today is someone who is extremely well-versed in discussing this and getting to the nuts and bolts of being able to do so. First, take a look at this. Meet Ernest Ellender, a seasoned expert in psychology, a life coach, and martial artist with over 25 years of experience in studying and addressing human behavior. Ernest is the author of the transformative book, This is How We Heal from Painful Childhoods, a practical guide for healing past intergenerational stress and trauma. In his book, he uniquely combines martial arts training with psychological principles to offer an effective curriculum for healing childhood traumas and family dysfunction. Drawing from his Cajun roots, Ernest has developed a holistic approach that emphasizes resilience, community, and personal growth. His techniques integrate physical discipline, mental clarity, and emotional healing to address deep-seated traumas and intergenerational stress. Today, we'll delve into Ernest's innovative methods and discover practical strategies to help us overcome past challenges and move toward a healthier, more empowered future. Ernest Ellender, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Adriana. Appreciate you inviting me here.
Absolutely. And getting right into it, I'm very impressed with how you have tackled the element of childhood trauma and why we should really address it if it is an issue, and then utilizing elements of martial arts to bridge, to learn from, so techniques that can allow us to grow stronger and move forward. Talk a little bit about, why does addressing childhood trauma matter? Why is this important for us to do, even if we've grown up and we've moved past maybe situations or moments in life where have really been challenging?
The shortest answer is, a lot of time we just don't recognize how much it stays with us or impacts us in the way that we kind of view the world, and usually more importantly, how we interact with other human beings. In our childhood, if human beings let us down, we tend to carry that belief that they will always let us down. So that comes out in confusing ways until we get into studying it and learning a little bit about it.
Would you say that this is something that is a much more newer concept that we are addressing as a society? Or have you, in your expertise, have you been seeing that this is an emerging area of concern that psychologists and others in the mental health field are addressing these days?
It's very much still a emerging concern. For example, we talk about the term complex PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which there's a lot of research on it now that's developing. So it's been around for decades. We understand the concept, and there's a lot of research on it, and there's a lot of exciting new stuff out for how to do something about it. But yet, it's still not thoroughly accepted. Like it's still not a diagnosis for psychologists to make. You would say PTSD, not complex PTSD. So it's in this transitional phase of it accumulating a lot of research already, but still it's not thoroughly in the textbooks kind of correctly or conclusively.
In your studies, what identifies as childhood trauma? What are some elements that would fall under this category?
Great question. There's such a broad range of it. There can be individual, like a 10-second experience that absolutely changes someone's life, producing that kind of the fear that lingers forever. And it could also be a bunch of lower grade, I should say, stresses for a child. Uh, just take any given contentious divorce, for example, that extends over years' time when the child is very young. Well, for those years, they're in this state of chronic anxiety. So it can range a lot of what messes kids up, basically, including just family dysfunction, like really unhealthy relationships, not necessarily that they encountered specifically uh, physical or emotional abuse, but there's a lot of dysfunction in the family and how they try to care for one another or control one another. So there's a broad range of things that can produce this.
Right. And what fascinates me is obviously every generation, every decade has had its own characteristics and how that generation copes. What is the difference between the time of the season per se and what we've learned, what we continue to learn as we grow? Are there certain elements, in other words, are there certain elements that are just part of that decade and that the whole society was going through a learning curve? Or are there certain things that people just struggle no matter the decade or the generation, and it just depends on how they cope?
I had a wonderful experience of getting to do a short neuropsych assessment on this World War II veteran. I was kind of starstruck. This is a combat vet from World War II. And at the end of the assessment, I got to just chat with him for a moment. And I asked him, said, how are you doing? This was at the National Center for PTSD through the VA, through the Veterans Affairs Hospital out in Menlo Park. And he responded, I said, well, just how are you doing? How are you doing in the program? He was the only really old timer there. And he was very composed. And he said, well, it's very good here. He said, I'm just trying to adjust. When we came back from the war, they told us, just don't talk about it, get back to work, do your best to forget about it. He said, now here they're telling me that I need to speak about it. I need to talk about it openly with people. So that tells you the direct difference between 2 generations ago. The understanding of it was just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get back in there and do your best. And now we understand that doesn't work very well. We need to be able to unpack these things, slow down, unpack them, discuss them, kind of wash the laundry, fold it back up correctly, and put it in its place. So it's a very different messages, very different approaches to healing.
What makes it hard
Mm.
for someone in their older years, not necessarily old per se,
Mhm.
but someone who is much far removed from childhood? What makes it hard for them to unpack and address? What are some things that you've noticed that sometimes people struggle with, and maybe differences between men and women, if that's a case?
First off, it's just a lack of awareness. A lot of people just running through life, kind of surviving life, and they're just not aware. And that's part of what I really want to be a part of, is helping make people aware that there are things we can do about it. There's lots of things we can do about it. So a lot of people are just not aware. They're not aware that that's what is holding them back. They're not aware that's what's creating these obstacles to their happiness or success. And then next, I guess, would be various fears. There's a fear of going to see a therapist or going to see a life coach, or of admitting things, or of a lot of the types of traumas are what do you call it, taboo, or kind of shameful family secrets of addiction, incest, all these kinds of things that they just don't want to even speak the words. They don't want it out there. So there's a lot of fear. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes a bit of fear. There can be pressures from family, like direct pressure. Don't go talking about our family stuff to other people.
Why?
And
Why do you,
sometimes,
no, I was going to say, why do you think that is? Why is that such a struggle? Because I find myself wondering, especially in recent times, that to be able to own your space and take ownership of just experience and how you process, that it's not, technically speaking, it will, things typically end up okay as they're addressed. So what makes it so challenging
yeah.
for others to really embrace that frame of thinking?
I mean, as human beings, we're as human animals, whatever. Our survival requires that we interact with other people, right? So we're very driven towards other human beings. And when somebody's experienced being let down or harmed in their childhood, it's like as an adult, they know they need humans, but they're very fearful of being down by humans. So when that's been really like drastically let down or drastically traumatized in youth, then it's really difficult to trust that it'll be okay. Like, if we just open this and address this with other human beings, it'll be okay. I might know that, but somebody who has directly been harmed by the very people who are supposed to protect them and love them, they do not believe that. So they do not believe that if they just talk about it and be open about it, that it'll be okay and people will be loving and protecting. That's a hard sell for a lot of people who actually experienced the opposite of that in childhood.
So then it's almost like a knee-jerk response of just maybe protecting of themselves, that
Very
100%.
much so.
So, I'm
Yes.
curious about something. So you've got Cajun roots. You are from Louisiana. And so I'm curious, in terms of regions and society and cultural differences, what are some things that you've known along the way that you've noticed in your area that of the South? And then being able to do your work where it includes other cultures or understanding of other cultures. What have you noticed? What are some similarities and what are some differences that maybe we're not aware of?
Uh, well, so I'm from Houma, which is kind of in between New Orleans and what we call down the bayou. Down the bayou was super rural. You go drive down the bayou, drive along the bayou about 10, 15 miles away. And some people joke that you should have a passport to go over there because it's so different. So I'm from the middle. I'm kind of country-ish boy, but not quite from way down the bayou. But my mom's from New Orleans, so I have a little bit of the in-between thing going on. And, I had a safe enough childhood. Most of the dangers I encountered were self-inflicted. Uh, but here in Houma, after I went off to school, got my doctorate in clinical psychology, I came back and started practicing as a clinical psychologist. And I got to meet some of these people from way down the bayou. And uh, as we get into the kind of history of it, they were basically kicked out of Canada, traveled down all the way down here to land that was so rough and hot that kind of like nobody else wanted it beside the Native Americans that were here before. And they stayed really secluded. So they don't, it's the type of thing they don't really talk to the police and whatnot, don't talk to outsiders as much. They might be polite, but they don't really engage with. And so there's still, even to this day, a lot of um, poverty, a lot of lower education, a lot of addiction. A lot of people go and work in the oil field. So there's good pay, but they're often working a lot, working really hard, and they come in, they play really hard. So yeah, lots of drugs and some poverty and whatnot, and there's just it's a fertile ground for a lot of trauma that I got to see as some of these clients came in and were telling me their stories of how they grew up down the bayou and like, man, some rough stuff. In
So
addition to some really wonderful stuff, because I mean, down the line, people are very much into family, so they're really tight, kind of really tight enmeshed families. That's the good side of it. A lot of tight families, very warm and loving, and then very tied to the land. A lot of hunting and fishing. But when it goes rough, it goes rough.
So you bring up a really good point. So it sounds like there's some correlations that you've picked up along the way, certain elements in like say a person's life in a region, and how much of an impact does say poverty level make in terms of traumas? So childhood trauma.
It,
So we think of things that are that the child perceives as harmful or it's just universally harmful. And so then if they're
Mhm.
experiencing this, is it would you find that maybe it's a level of frustration that the family is in this example that their hands are tied, or that the opportunity's not there, or
Yeah, when it comes to poverty, there's kind of two things that can really go on. One is just the ongoing stress in the household of just not being able to meet the bills. So parents are often working a lot or chasing, trying to pay the bills. So when they're having that kind of difficulty, the parents are stressed, or an individual parent is stressed, and they're out there working and chasing stuff. So the child is kind of left behind a little bit, oftentimes a little neglected, or just absorbing that stress. So there's just the again the anxiety of day by day, week by week, month by month, year after year, trying to pay the bills. But then the second thing, in communities that have afflicted with a lot of poverty, people try a lot of things to get out of poverty, or a lot of things, bad stuff occurs in poverty. When, in general, if you're not connected to resources to help, well, there's just a lot of addiction, a lot of predatory behaviors, and a lot of lower education. So just not aware of things that are outside of the community. So that leads to not just the stress of not being able to meet the pay bills, but very dangerous things happening. Like actual bad things happening. The parents are away for that for days or for long periods of time. The kid is attended by unhealthy people.
so my question to you is, when parents are when their hands are tied, and what you've seen so far of the work that you've done, is it that so you talk about lack of awareness of what they can do. How
Mm-hmm.
much of a priority do parents of families where they're dealing with childhood trauma that they place on health and self-care? How much of that is part of the landscape, or is it not part of the landscape at all?
I'm sorry, part of the landscape for
So
individuals in those situations.
yeah, so when we think of families and we think of parents and lack of awareness, I'm wondering to what degree are they connected with their health and their self-care? That there's maybe that
Gotcha. Yes.
level of proactivity that's happening, or maybe that there's not.
Yeah. So often when we're in that kind of situation, the concept of self care is just way on the back burner. It's just, what do I need to do to pay these bills or to survive this or that situation? So this kind of big picture, I need to take care of myself. I need to care for myself. I need to work on communication skills. I need to do these things, are really off their mind. It's out. It's way in the back seat. It's in the trunk of the car. It's not even. I don't have time to do that. I need to just focus on paying this bill. Unfortunately.
Can someone address childhood trauma and still be in survival mode, albeit temporary?
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, to get out of survival mode. I mean, there's a broad range of it. And when people come in and sitting in front of me, sometimes they're very clearly fidgety and tense and just haven't. Sometimes it'll take months, like months, to get out of survival mode just for a couple of minutes. They don't recognize that that's how they've been living all their life. They just didn't. If that's the only way that they've known, they don't understand that. They don't know that.
But
And then
you're
other people say
no,
again.
go ahead, go ahead.
And then others come in and they appear really relaxed and calm, and they do yoga, and they're able to get in a calm spot. And then it's only when they're triggered for specific things that remind them of their traumas that you really see this the fight or flight mode come out, that survival mode come out, and that'll last for hours or even days and often weeks before they can get back out of it. There's, again, a broad range of presentation that we need to address.
And important to identify for sure. We're going to continue this conversation.
Yes.
First, we're going to take a commercial break. Stay put. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Hey everyone, welcome back to Fit Bites. Today we're diving into why strength training isn't just for athletes, it is literally anti-aging. Now let's explore how this essential form of exercise keeps us strong and vibrant, especially as we grow older. Strength training encompasses various forms, each with its own benefits. There's traditional resistance training, which uses weights or bands to build muscle and bone density. Then there are isometric exercises, like planks or wall sits, where you hold a position without moving to improve stability and core strength. We also have isometric resistance training, where you push against immovable objects. Now, this method increases muscle tone and strength without the wear and tear of moving weights. So, why is this crucial as we age? Strength training boosts metabolism, maintains muscle mass and bone density, reducing the risk of osteoporosis and falls. It keeps our bodies capable and functional, allowing us to enjoy a high quality of life as we age. Incorporating strength training into your routine a few times a week can make a significant difference. It's about more than just muscle. It's about empowering your future self. Stay strong, stay healthy, and tune in next time for more Fit Bites. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. My guest today, Ernest Ellender, he is a life coach and author, and we are talking about how we heal from past childhood traumas. And Ernest, before the break, we were talking about the correlation with poverty and sometimes how there are limited options, or the perception of limited options for those who are struggling to overcome this as a family, and then even as individuals. Can we, as we're segueing into this, can we, I want to bring up our slide, but I want to delve into the breakdown of childhood trauma and some of the elements of this picture that create a situation of trauma and trying to deal with it. Can you take us through the events, the turn of events that someone endures, both physically and then what it overall on the body, the effects?
Sure. So I guess we could start in, so this has emotional, behavioral, and physical. I would add to it a cognitive realm, which is our thinking realm. So our brain can respond to perceived danger either through the physical or also through thought-based stuff, like somebody telling me that something dangerous is about to happen. Then I have that response. And the response is in the physical realm there. The body prepares for the survival responses of fight, freeze, or fawn. And we experience that emotionally, typically as fear or panic. So moving forward, once we've experienced that intense panic, that intense fear can often come out as, it can endure into adulthood as anger, as enduring fear, as anxiety, and often also as like numbness, where you get to feeling numb. And on this chart, the numbness is under behavioral realm. And then behaviorally, how we respond to it it depends very much on the individual as to what they think they need to do in order to survive. So some of these behaviors are, I need to control myself, I need to hurt myself, or I need to uh, fight. I need to fight other people to survive. There's lots of things that people can tell themselves, and those come out as these behaviors like compulsions, eating disorders, impulsiveness. I need to run away. I need to get away from dangerous people. That would lead to that isolation. Uh, yeah. So we have the, yeah, there, go ahead.
And, as I think about that chart, one of the things that comes to mind is what are some of the ways that this comes out in real life that, or just a variety of everyday examples that we may not realize is part of our past that's just kind of seeping into a current situation that is really impacting that is really making things uncomfortable or just a little plot twist. What are some everyday
Yeah.
moments that affect so many people?
Well, right off within relationships, a lot of times I'll hear the person who is struggling with their childhood stuff saying, "I don't know why my husband is with me. He's so much he deserves better." As soon as I hear that, he deserves better. Why? Because, and that's based on that what we call a trauma lie, something that was learned in youth, that a child, when they're experiencing traumas and neglect or something panic inducing, their little kid's brain comes up with these rules of how to survive, these trauma lies, these things that they believe are true. I am not worthy. I'm not good enough to be deserving of this or that. Or I have to fight people to survive, or I need to run away to survive. And then they have fears about the other person. So the people who are supposed to love and protect me will hurt me. So if someone in their adulthood, in their marriage, believes that eventually this person is going to hurt me because I've experienced it and I know it and that's going to happen, it's that belief can be to what I guess we could call a delusional belief. They truly believe it and they're just waiting for it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, they can accidentally start self-sabotaging to make it happen. I know you're going to leave me. I know I don't deserve you. And you're probably cheating. I wouldn't blame you for cheating, but shame on you for cheating, even though there's none of that happening. So that's how strong these trauma lies and these beliefs can come in and sabotage our, kind of the most important relationships in our life.
So,
So that's how we can see it in relationships. Yeah.
so
Go ahead.
from a clinical perspective, when someone presents as a patient, as a client, and right off the bat they're like, I don't know, or if the behavior, if there's almost like a dysfunctional behavior happening of how they're perceiving themselves and their life, automatically there's something that's fueling it from the past, and that's a conclusion that you oftentimes come to. Would that be accurate?
99 point something percent of the
Okay.
time, yes, yes.
Okay.
And sometimes that's a battle in the beginning. They're like, well, no, this is what's happening right now. This is what happened. It has nothing to do with my childhood. And it's not until we go through breathing and calming and getting into a state where we can think a little more creatively and look at the patterns and educate ourselves a little bit about, well, this is just a natural response to these things. This is what happens. This is the natural course of it. Then they can more and more see the patterns and see how this recurred numerous times. It's not just right now. But
So,
oftentimes, again, that takes months, a year sometimes.
and that's even if they don't identify it. So if they're like, I don't know what's going on, I can't explain it, I'm just like this. And so then, but obviously that would be an
Yeah.
indicator that something's happening. Another situation, you and I were talking before today, and I was curious to get your take on the work setting, where sometimes environments, have work environments, there are moments where we hear of toxic work environments, whether it's a coworker, a colleague, or even a boss or someone of a higher management position, that suddenly that their behaviors are just really making life miserable. And what are some scenarios that you've seen or that you've come across that childhood traumas present and manifest in the workspace where it may not easily come to mind for people to realize is happening.
Let's say, for example, one guy was there's some workplace conflict, and in every workplace there's going to be some conflict, and people who have had a healthy enough childhood and all that kind of stuff can kind of let things roll off to some degree, or just dismiss them or report it, this or that. But when it triggers somebody who's experienced that kind of childhood traumas, the intensity of the anger leads to it can lead to very aggressive behaviors. For this individual, there was a lot of cursing and a lot of red face, and it took days to calm down. When he's going into work in this kind of quasi-dissociative state, and after days of working, calming down, I was able to see, wow, that situation did not call for the response that I gave. Or another one, this wonderful woman, well, man, a really hard-working client. She was just working as a server, and the busser, another server was just passing off all her duties to my client, and she couldn't handle losing. She could not afford to lose that job, so she came in. I'm so angry at this woman, but I don't know what to do. So we went through, her childhood traumas taught her, you got to fight to survive. You got to fight. And so we had to replace that with, you have to collaborate to thrive. You have to collaborate with other healthy enough individuals to thrive. And so we went through a little role playing to address it with the manager and with that other individual. And it turned out wonderful, but it was after that initial experience of, this person is trying to harm me, and I need to do something aggressive about it.
And this is you're highlighting something that doesn't come up in frequent conversations. The workplace and how this can manifest. And I can only imagine how the stress of this can be for any viewers who are watching, that, if you're in a toxic work environment and someone is just not handling themselves, or maybe they're just kind of spewing vitriol all over the place. But then here you have, say, said person who is just the recipient of this, but they can't do anything about it because that's their line of work. That's how they pay their bills. So they got to put up with it.
Yes.
And so then they could very well take this home and maybe take it out on family, or just kind of it evolves and manifests in other places. So this is so what would you say to those who, what is the best way to handle a situation in which someone's behavior in the workplace could very likely be stemming from something in their past, and they're just bringing it and sharing it unwillingly with everyone? What would be the best way to start unpacking that and to address it? What do you do in those situations when clients have that?
I did want to, before I answer that one, I did want to add to that, because those two examples I gave were of individuals whose trauma taught them they had to fight to survive, right? But you brought up the other side of it, which is, I need to fawn, or I need to isolate to survive. And those are the people who have a difficult time speaking up for themselves, or negotiating, or advocating for themselves. So in these work environments, when they really are being taken advantage of, or being harmed, or being looked over for advancement, and they just don't have the practice of speaking up for themselves, of demanding just respect or consideration. They don't believe they're worth it, or they just don't have that practice. They were never taught it. They were taught to hide, or to do exactly what they're told. So that is the other side of the anger, or predator versus victim.
And you know what? And it's
there.
I never really gave deep thought about this prior to us talking today, that how much of a domino effect this truly has, and how far reaching trauma has in our lives, because of perceptions and how people perceive themselves and situations. It could, now we can see clearly how the work environment can be strayed one way or another, how it can be impacted. And obviously work doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be painfully hard. But
There we go. Yes. It really should not be toxic or painfully hard. And then
absolutely.
to answer your question, I like to start with some professional guidance because there's so much the concept of healing from childhood trauma stuff is so complex and so counterintuitive at times. Like I was talking about that old World War II vet, just tough it out, and that's not great advice, So ideally, in the workplace environment, when these things come up, a lot of times it's just avoided because it's scary, it's taboo, it's complex, and HR doesn't want to get directly into this. But luckily, a lot of the what do you call it, the American Disabilities Act and those types of things are including mental health in that. So there's oftentimes, you know, insurance will pay for that initial consultation with a trauma-informed specialist, a trauma-informed therapist who can introduce someone to that world, the science of understanding and proactively healing from these childhood things and recognizing how it's impacting them at work. And once they've been introduced to that and kind of have a good ballpark understanding of it, then there's just so many wonderful resources. They have, all kinds of YouTube free resources. They have wonderful podcasts and TV shows and things like your TV show here that it can show them all these different resources, all these different people that they can follow up on. There's tons of books on it. But my favorite starting point is when work is made aware, oh, you would like to talk to somebody professional? Well, okay. And then they get that going. And oftentimes that can be a very like positive thing. There's also sometimes, like, I've worked with a number of police officers, for example, who that police officers do not like to go see a therapist. They're afraid to get labeled by the workplace as that guy or get put on desk duty because they're afraid he's crazy or she's crazy or that sort of thing. So there is often still some workplace hesitancy to, or kind of taboo around the mental health work. But
Absolutely. So real
yeah,
quickly
yeah,
before
unfortunately.
we go to break, I do want to talk
Oh,
about obviously the role that you have of a black belt trauma coach, and if you could speak a little bit about how your tie-in with martial arts is to addressing childhood trauma and being able to grow from past
uh,
experiences. Where's the connection for you?
the connection after we're let in the door and we understand, like, oh, this is what this is. This is what it is. That's just an educational thing. Now I have the insight that I'm doing things that perpetuate problems, and it's because of my childhood. Okay, that's a concept. Now I understand it. Now what do I do about it? Well, we need to develop skills. And in the development of skills, the martial arts is amazing. We understand we need tons of repetition. We understand that we need low stress repetition and then medium and then high speed repetition to get advanced at these skills. So self-advocacy skills, negotiation skills, intimacy skills, all these things are different skills that we have to practice and develop. And then it's also the education of both of them leads to feeling much more confident, feeling safer, and feeling like I can be more of myself. When I'm not so fearful of people rejecting me or people attacking me, when I'm not as fearful of that, then I can be more myself. I can choose the path that I want to go on, and I can be silly if I want to be silly. It's really wonderful. Both of those practices open doors, and both of them require education and a bunch of training.
I love your analogy because it's self-preparation. So it's taking the
Absolutely.
focus
Yes.
and putting it on you so that you're able to improve from where you used to be. So then that effort,
Mm-hmm.
that planning, that intentionality allows for growth. And so I could see how the two just kind of integrate, and
Yep.
that there's a
Yep.
flow for a stronger you. So
And I could keep going with it because there's so many similarities. Another, just on the social component, in as we address things in the psychology or our mental health world, we learn how to be closer to one another and be respectful towards one another and demand respect from one another. In the martial arts world, there's a similar thing. We come into the martial arts world, and you have to follow the rules of sportsmanship. It has to be safe training. And we end up being really close to those people. There's not much closer than, fist to fist grappling and stuff like that. We really learn how to treat one another in a respectful and mutually empowering fashion in both of those activities.
That's very important. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to continue. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I live in Colorado with a very active lifestyle where my family and I race horses and rodeo. I'm happy to share an amazing technology that has changed my life. 6 months ago, my friend introduced me to a wearable nanocrystal technology that is activated through phototherapy, or your own body's light. With this technology, this little patch is able to increase the copper GHK peptides in your body, which can reactivate stem cells. The beautiful thing about stem cells is that it goes in your body and fixes whatever's broken. If you would like to experience more energy, better sleep, weight loss, or countless other benefits, click on the QR code below to find the younger, healthier you with this affordable technology that I have seen change hundreds of lives.
We can take our own health into our own hands, okay? So we'll kind of expand on that. So I take a lot of vitamins every day. Long before I started this business, my wife has had me taking my vitamin C, my B complexes, amino acids every single solitary day, and I still do, even though I still do IVs as well. But when you take vitamins orally, you get 15 to 20% of them. Some people get less because they have autoimmune issues. Some people have a lot of inflammation issues, whatever the case may be, so they don't get the absorption that they need to be getting. So they don't get their immune system built up. Doing the mobile IVs, I'm able to take your immune system, I'm able to naturally boost it.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Our guest today, Ernest Ellender, he is a life coach, author. He's also the black belt trauma coach. And we've been talking about how to overcome past childhood traumas so that we can elevate and grow and learn from there, and why it's very important that we do so if in fact that's what we've experienced. And so before the break, we were talking about the integration with martial arts and your approach to addressing childhood traumas with your clients. I do want to talk a little bit more. I want to dive into your book, and I'd like to have us talk more in detail. So obviously your book is called This Is How We Heal from Past Childhood Traumas, and talk about what prompted you to write the book, and who's it for, and the impact that you've seen so far on the book.
Let's see, what prompted me to write the book. After my working as a psychologist for the 10 years after grad school, I just was really attracted to like complex challenges. I love a good challenge. That's why I love martial arts. And the complexity of the healing from childhood stuff is really challenging. So I was looking through the research and trying to understand how is it possible for one family to encounter so much trauma. Some of the clients I was getting early on, they would just describe trauma after trauma after trauma throughout their childhood. And I didn't understand. Like, it seems impossible. But it's very possible, because I had a bunch of clients like that, and it was, wow, it's really out there. There's that much out there. And so, looking through the research, a lot of the research at the time was looking more at kind of like ethnic groups who encountered such traumas, and I was more curious about the individual family unit. And when I couldn't find a list, I developed my own list. So I just started saying, well, we have to be able to address this issue. Getting out of fight or flight, out of survival response, for example. You have to be able to do that. So that's one of them. And then what's the next one and the next one? And it started out 13, and then over the years, it ended up being 20 different rules or 20 different variables that we have to learn about and have to have an answer for. We have to do something about each of these 20 things in order to comprehensively address our childhood stuff. So, and so that was what brought me to it, was my just fascination with the complexity and challenge of the issue. And then who's it for? It's really for anybody as young as older teens all the way to seniors. But I'll say most of my most successful clients are oftentimes single or coupled parents in their late 20s, early 30s through their 50s, who have their kids growing up now, and they just don't want to hand down to the kids what was handed down to them. So they encounter these difficult things with their kids, and they want to come in and get some help and learn how to create the most healthy environment for their kids. So a lot of the times my best clients are parents, and then men and women in their late 30s, 40s.
So younger younger parents per se of younger
Mhm.
generation. So millennials, even going into, I guess you could say Gen Z, or not Gen Z yet, but millennials, obviously,
Mhm.
that would be a good bulk of them. And so from the book, can you talk about perhaps a tip to share with a viewer who might be watching that is still struggling with painful childhood traumas, and yet they have a very complicated relationship with a family member that they grew up with, whether it was say a sibling or a parent or an extended
Yeah.
family member in the house. What are some helpful ways to start planting those healing seeds to at least grow from that, even though we all know we can't change the past?
Right. Yeah, we cannot change the past. We can modify our emotional response to the past. There's a little caveat there. We can rework those memories so that we don't see only the panic of it, but we see the resilience of it. So we can rework some of the past. We can't change it. Can't change what happened, but we can change how we experience the memories of it. Uh, to answer your question directly, when we're engaging, for example, in a challenging adult relationship with some people some of our family members who are more or less healthy now, let's see, I think rule number 14 is boundaries are confusing, so keep practicing better boundaries. And if we go back to our little chart where we had the behavioral and emotional, it was also cognitive. And we would just learn about boundaries there. We can start to fine tune how we can successfully engage with family members and meet them on the level where they are. So as I become more and more and more healthy and more stable and more happy, I'm able to engage in that relationship in a more stable fashion, not drawn in by drama, what have you. I might learn to keep more tight cognitive boundaries where I don't share sensitive data, because that sensitive data is not respected. I can physically be there and engage with them and discuss things that are safe to discuss. So we can start fine tuning these boundaries so that we can engage, but engage on a safe and healthy level.
And I think, and from what you're saying, also, it sounds like there's also permission to redefine boundary lines as, say, that person sees fit, even if it goes against family tradition. In other words, if there is
Constantly.
a level of safe distancing, whether emotionally or even physically, that it would, if appropriate, that certainly it would start with that self-permission of this is what is helpful for me. And so then that would open up the space, would you say?
Absolutely. I mean, we have, let's see, I forget which rule. The center of the universe is not a compliment. It refers to this concept that a lot of very dysfunctional families, the whole world kind of revolves around, all the people in it revolve around the most dominant, the most manipulative, the sickest person in the room. Everybody revolves around them. So there's a period where we have to separate from that dynamic and learn what we call the ideal family structure, where the couple is a pair, they're a team, and people respect that. So there's a period of moving away from for a little while we learn how to function in a stable environment in their own household. And then there's a negotiation for the rest of their life of moving toward or moving away from, according to a measurement of how it's going, not according to, oh, I really should, family's blood, you can't help. We got to dispel some of those myths and
that's
practice treating ourselves in a healthy way, in a loving way. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today, Ernest Ellender. He is the Black Belt Trauma Coach. He's a life coach, author, and we are learning about ways that allow us to ascend from painful childhood traumas. And of course, we don't have as much time in the world as what we want. But Ernest, tell everyone where you are in the virtual space. Where can we find you?
Currently, I have my website, ernestellenderphd.com, where we can get connected for online life and trauma coaching. I have a book that I'm working on getting out there. I'm kind of new to the book marketing world. And very soon I'll have my own YouTube channel in which I hope to offer a lot of this content for free for people out there to kind of just send out that information, get that information out there.
Now, are you on social media? You're on Facebook, yes?
I am on Facebook as well as LinkedIn also, yes.
All right. If there's one thing that you would, and of course we're running out of time, but if there's one thing that you would want to tell the viewer who is still navigating and still struggling through, that they just can't seem to get 100% past whatever experience that they had when they were much younger, what would you tell them?
I get to it. If you're considering it, try it out. You can just read a little bit. You can watch videos on it. It will be worth the effort.
Absolutely.
It will be worth it.
Absolutely. One more time, I'd like to bring up your slide just so that viewers can see where they can find your book on Amazon. So this is how we heal from painful childhoods. And of course, viewers can grab the QR code, and phenomenal read. And with that, of course, we are out of time. Ernest Ellender, the Black Belt Trauma Coach, life coach, and author. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Adriana, for having me. This has been wonderful. Really appreciate it. And appreciate what you're doing for getting this information out to your audience.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, with all our viewers, you can find us on the web at thehealthrevolutiontv.com. We are continuing to update and grow as we are embarking into season 3. You can always sign up for our newsletter. You can send us an email to let us know of any type of show episode ideas you'd love for us to cover. In addition to that, on the upper left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the QR code. If you want to grab that, feel free to do so. Of course, a quick shout out to our newest sponsor, KO Photography. And you can always find us on the E360 TV network on the Achieve TV channel every single Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That is all the time that we have. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to everyone who is watching. Until next time, take care of yourselves. See you soon.